Alright, today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different video than usual. In light of this past weekend's lack of fights, there really hasn't been a lack of major storylines going on in the larger MMA universe. And with the UFC getting close to its milestone event, UFC 300, a lot of fans have not been shy to express exactly how they feel about this card and a bunch of other things. So in this video, I'll be exploring the scholarly topic of why MMA fans absolutely suck. Let's get into it. So I first thought about making this kind of video back when Francis Ngannou fought Tyson Fury. That was a fight that I was very excited to see on one hand because I wanted to see what Ngannou looks like in the ring. But just like everyone else, I thought Ngannou was basically getting brought out to slaughter. I figured Tyson Fury, the heavyweight champion boxing superstar that he is, he's just gonna lay Francis out within the first few rounds. And obviously, me along with many other people were very wrong about that. That being said, this actually was a very competitive fight. At the end of the day, Tyson Fury was able to outbox Francis Ngannou thanks to his plethora of boxing experience. But if you were to ask any casual MMA fan, they would say Francis embarrassed him, Francis embarrassed the sport of boxing. And you know what? Tyson Fury is actually not even that good. Instead of just giving respect to both guys for having a good fight, but of course that is way too much to expect from the MMA fan base. And not too long ago, one of my personal favorite fighters, Israel Adesanya, who has obviously come up short in a couple of his last few performances, and in typical MMA fan fashion, everywhere online you see the narrative that Israel actually isn't that good, never was that good, and should never fight for a title ever again. It's like as fast as he became this superstar that everyone knows and loves, is just as fast as he became public enemy #1 in the eyes of the fans. And then more recently, Sean Strickland lost a very close fight against Dricus du Plessis, but a lot of Strickland fans refuse to accept that. They think that Sean won. Actually, not even just that he won every single round, and it was a dominant victory, and he got robbed because apparently Disney paid off for the refs. I know that salty fans exist in every single sport that there is, but I think when you really take a look at it, MMA fans have got to have every single other sport beat in terms of having the most toxic fan base. The UFC is fortunate enough to have one of the best sports commentators alive, at least in my opinion, in John Anik, who echoes a similar sentiment as what I feel about some of the MMA fans, has recently voiced his opinion on the Anik and Florian podcast, where he brought up the idea of even retiring from the sport since he's just tired of dealing with it. This touches on some of the topics that I go deeper in depth with on my main channel, but I think for whatever reason, the UFC and MMA in general kind of attracts a very unhappy fan base. And a lot of these people are just kind of looking for someone to shit on as a recreational activity. And no pun intended, the UFC kind of provides the ultimate opportunity for fans to do exactly that. A lot of UFC fighters aren't necessarily big stars. We can count the handful, the 5 to 15, 20 big names in the UFC that have actually ascended to that superstar level, but a lot of guys are just kind of normal dudes that are trying to make it. And since a lot of these guys don't necessarily have huge followings on social media, they're a lot more accessible. And then when you think about the very nature of what it means to be a professional fighter, these guys, even the most active fighters, are only fighting 4 or 5 times a year. But when you look at the majority of guys that are fighting 1, 2, maybe 3 times a year, when they're not in camp, that leaves them a lot of downtime where I'm sure a lot of them are going onto social media, especially a lot of these guys that are trying to put themselves in position to use social media as a secondary source of income. So if a fighter's coming fresh off of a fight where they unfortunately get knocked out, there is hundreds, maybe thousands of fans that feel so comfortable shoving it in their face and trying to make them feel like shit for chasing a dream. As of the time I'm recording this, and I got a bad feeling this is going to change by the time it's actually uploaded, but the main event and possibly even the co-main event of UFC 300 is still yet to be announced. And just taking a look at UFC 300 right now, it's fucking stacked. This is one of the most stacked cards the UFC has ever put on. And I'm willing to bet that after they add the cherry on top, the major fight as the main event, this is, when it's all said and done, this is probably going to be looked at as the best, if not one of the best fight cards of all time. Despite this card being absolutely stacked, everyone's complaining about it. Recently, Dana White announced that there was a major addition to this card with boxing Hall of Famer and soon to be UFC Hall of Famer Holly Holm going up against PFL champion Kayla Harrison, someone who is very much in the discussion of greatest female fighter of all time. I know Amanda Nunes is probably running away with that title as of now, but still, getting a major superstar from another organization for a pretty big fight on the prelim was enough to make fans very mad. The biggest complaint being that there's too many women fights on this card, even though these are in all likelihood prelim fights and they all involve former champions or current champions. And honestly, I think no matter who they decide to add as the main event, or even if they add another co-main event, there's just no chance fans are going to be happy. If they add Conor, fans are going to be mad because he's old and washed up and he doesn't deserve it. If they bring back some kind of retired legend, fans are going to be mad because, again, it's someone who's old and washed up and we don't want it. If they try to bring in Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis, people are going to be mad because they think Adesanya doesn't deserve it. Same thing if it was Hamzat versus Dricus. Dana White could announce Jesus Christ himself is resurrecting to face off against Satan as the headlining event, and people will still be mad and find a reason to say that this is extremely underwhelming. We've even seen guys recently like Chris Curtis on the MMA Hour talk about how he's done when it comes to social media, specifically because of how the fans talk to him. In the end, there's really no clean way to put a bow on this, but hopefully if there's anyone watching this video that had some major plans of leaving some hateful comments under a UFC fighter's post, you can take a second to realize that at the end of the day, these are real people, and flooding them with hateful messages after they've just gotten knocked out in a fight that was going to change the trajectory of their life had they won, probably not the best thing to do. At the end of the day, no matter how shitty you feel, being a piece of shit to someone else who you don't know, have never met, and probably will never meet, is not going to make you feel better. Thanks for watching. Peace.